Include questions from students. About 20 years ago, I studied to become a physics teacher. As a part of our curriculum, we had a thing called Didactics Lab. It was a lab where they had some basic devices such as electrostatic machines, pneumatic bench, simple toys, and tools. The drill was that one week we were preparing some experiments and planning a lesson, and the next week actual school children would come and we would present our experiments to them and teach them physics. The lab was run by an older professor who was pretty laid back and a young PhD candidate who was doing everything to show us how important she is. As a part of our preparation week, we had to prepare a lesson plan, in which we would indicate our aims, our methods, and predicted outcome. This is what teachers do in regular work, and as my mom was a teacher, I was familiar with the format, so I was simply writing everything as required, including a brief description of the lesson like teacher present the experiment and explains the science behind, then answers questions from the students, etc. The PhD candidate thought this is not enough and demanded that I write much more detailed plan, including the exact questions the student will ask. I told her it's impossible, because I can't predict what questions will be asked. She told me to extrapolate on the basis of the questions asked by students during previous classes. So I did. My next lesson plan looked as follows. Teacher switches the electrostatic machine on. Girls are screaming. Boys are laughing at them. One of the boys throws a paper ball at the girls. His pals laugh. The girls are outraged and demand for a teacher to do something. One of the girls asks, "Do you really want to be a teacher?" My mom says their pay is shit. Another boy examines the equipment sitting on the shelf and says, "My neighbor has a basement full of such electric shit. What do you think he might need it all for?" The teacher tries to conduct the experiment. He is interrupted by a girl announcing, "My auntie is a physics teacher as well, but she lives in another town." One of the boys asks if he can go to the toilet, and so on and so forth. It was like 10 pages long instead of usual page or two. The PhD candidate was outraged and told me those are stupid questions that no student would ever ask and I should write only the smart questions. I told her she told me to extrapolate on the basis of previous interactions with the students, and the questions and students' behavior already happened to me at least once. She sent me to the laid-back professor, who read my whole plan chuckling all the way and told her that I obviously understand kids already, so I don't have to write my lessons plans anymore. Apart from one page of brief description of the experiment I planned, the PhD candidate was avoiding me for the rest of the class, but I got a good note in the end.
H.O.A. receives a check for all fines. Short history. Fall 2005. So, and I buy our first house together. We're happy. Baby's on the way. House is cute and in a new subdivision. H.O.A. just formed. We're at the end of a blunt cul-de-sac. Quiet. No traffic. Neighbors nice. 3-ish years later, the U.S. economy shit the bed and wiped with the drapes. Over half of the homes in our subdivision have been foreclosed on or are in the process. Me and mine aren't paying on our mortgage. We've moved out and a family friend and his family have moved in. They lost their house. He pays me a discounted rent. I'm not paying the mortgage, but maintaining the house with his rent. The H.O.A. is having troubles maintaining the common areas and keeping things clean because of lack of funds. Junky cars and dead/dying landscaping are everywhere. One home burned to its foundation. A few months after my friend moves in, red fire lane paint is applied to the curbs of all the cul-de-sacs in the subdivision. I'm furious because it prevents street parking in front of the house. Anytime I need to stop by to fix something or my tenant has a guest, we must park in front of a neighbor's house or in the common collector streets and walk in. I call the local fire department to ask why they need so many fire lanes, seeing how there were no hydrants nearby. They told me they hadn't requested additional fire lanes, nor had they asked for curbs to be painted. They said anyone can just paint a curb red. It's the signage or a hydrant's presence that makes it a legal fire lane. The paint's just there to help you interpret the signage. I check, and sure enough, no signs. Come to find out, it's a ploy by the H.O.A. to drum up more funds. If they paint curbs red and call it a safety zone, their bylaws allow them to fine a homeowner for violating the safety zone. Funny also that the H.O.A. president lives at the end of one of the cul-de-sacs, and now the neighbors can no longer park in front of her house without getting safety zone fines. One evening, just past twilight, wearing a high-vis vest, safety glasses, and work boots, I paint over the red curb with boring gray paint, specifically designed for concrete. with great coverage. I do the entire cul-de-sac. 3 weeks later, it's red again. 2 days later, gray. 5 weeks, red. Then gray, with silicone top sealer. Then red, that flakes off almost immediately. Then red again, flakes. Then a sign that reads, Safety Zone, no parking. For lack of payment, the home is now under notification of foreclosure, and I'm working with an agency to help navigate and file all the paperwork needed so we can short sell. Short selling in this context means that although we promise to pay the bank $350,000 plus interest for the house, they'd forgive any amount we own as long as we turn the house over in good condition, e.g. not flush concrete down the toilets or poke pin holes in the water pipes. Which screws us, but it's better than owing $350,000 on a house worth only $165,000 that will be legally taken from us in short order. Fuck you, Reagan. I'm still waiting for that trickle. During a short sale, you're required to notify any potential parties that could have liens on the house. This includes the H.O.A. I'm up to date on my dues and have no outstanding violations. So, I think I'm in the clear. But no, the H.O.A. suddenly comes up with a whole list of violations that haven't been addressed or remedied for 5 months. Plus additional fines for the delay. The H.O.A. said they notified me in November, but can't seem to produce copies of these multiple notices of violation. They only have the current one in March listing all the outstanding violations. Examples: black stains on driveway, uncoiled garden hose, unapproved tree, missing bush, missing foliage, dead tree. I informed them that the stains were tire marks from driving into the garage. The unapproved tree they did, in fact, approve. The missing bushes, they approved the removal. Here's a copy of the plan and your approvals with your name on it. It's not my fault you don't know what you approved. The dead tree. Many trees tend to lose leaves in the fall, like around November. They might look dead if you're just making up violations in February, but are just dormant and waiting for spring. Even if it was dead, you can't replace a tree in November, December, January, or February. No nurseries sell saplings that late in the season, unless you want a Yuletide tree. How can someone be reasonably expected to replace a dead tree in the off-season? The H.O.A. delays responding, and the short sale is on a timer. If I don't have all legal items, payments for liens, and documents into the escrow officer by date, my short sale will fall through, and I'll owe $350,000 plus interest on a $165,000 house that's soon to be foreclosed on. The H.O.A. fines and fees total $1,955, $45 short of where felony fraud starts. I'm furious. This H.O.A. is gonna fuck me one last time, and I'll pay for the experience. So I talk to the escrow officer and see what she needs. Only the money for the H.O.A. lien, and you'll close escrow tomorrow. She's seen reams of these come through with similar amounts of fines requested by HOAs that hold up short sales. None exceed $2,000. I ask her what form of payment will satisfy her as an escrow officer. Money order, cash, or check. A check would be easiest for you, don't you think? If I write a check to HOA for $1,955, then hand it to you, that'll satisfy escrow? Yep. You'll mail the check to HOA after the document's record? Yes. You'll have a check in 25 minutes. The next day, on the phone with the escrow officer, sitting in my car in a parking lot. 9:01 a.m. Did the documents record? Did the short sale go through? Yes. I'll mail out finalized documents and any other items before close of business today. Thank you. Hang up. I walk into the local branch of my bank and inform the teller I need to place a stop payment on a check. Edit. My bad. I didn't include the fallout Rule 7. Here goes. And HOA never tried to collect or contact us again.
So, you want me to get married? Not my story, but I was present ages ago at the wedding in question. This young woman becomes pregnant with the partner with whom she lived. The Catholic mother takes a dim view of this and is probably a little afraid of, what will people say? The mother therefore urges her daughter to get married and ends up threatening to disinherit her. So she organized her wedding. The civil marriage took place relatively normally. But once at the Catholic Church, she invited her zealous pastor uncle, with whom her mother no longer wanted to talk about faith, to give a mini preach in addition to that of the priest, and chose evangelical songs that obviously no one knew. At the exit of the church, I don't know how she managed to put this together, but she told me a few years later that she chose the priest specifically because of it. 2 police officers were waiting for the priest because he was under investigation for acts of pedophilia. After the photos, she arrived at the meal with the bottom of her wedding dress completely soiled. I even wonder if she served contaminated seafood because people at the parents' table ended up sick. She was not disinherited. Edit. She's still happily married.
Thank you so much for watching the video. For more video like this, please subscribe.